Gray Falcon with your morning nerdy news. We're going to start off by talking about 3-4 Industries over on Halo Waypoint, discussing how Halo 3 ODST is getting close to beta, or as they call it, their flight. With this information, you'll be able to start packing your bags. We are confident that flighting is only a few days off, so close in fact that the members will be online working through this weekend to help make sure no new bugs have arisen to block the public flight. So this is great news. We should expect that this week sometime we will start to be able to play ODST through PC if that's your bag. In other gaming news, top new games out for Switch, PS4, Xbox One, and PC this week. Over on GameStop, they cover what are the games coming out. So we have on PC, Microsoft Flight Simulator. I believe this will also be available on Xbox if you are an Xbox Game Pass Ultimate member, or just regular Game Pass for PC or Xbox. You should be able to go on and download and play this starting tomorrow. As well as starting August 20th, Battletoads will be up and available. This is one that I'm excited about. I have never really been a Battletoads person. However, I do plan to start playing with this release. So be sure to check me out when I am streaming that live later this week. Samurai Jack Battle Through Time is out on August 21st. And new Super Lucky Tale will be out on August 21st as well. And if you are a golf fan, be sure to check out PGA 2K21 on August 21st. That's it for the big games that will be out this week. Let me know in the chat if you are planning to play any of these or what you're most excited for this week, or if you're still playing something old, or over on Ghost of Tsushima, which has been out for a few weeks. Continuing in gaming news, Battlefield 6 maps have been designed with 128 players in mind. Increased Battle Royale interest may lead to free-to-play game, is the rumor. This is coming over from WCCF Tech. So effectively, Battlefield 6 has yet to be announced officially, and they say that in this article. These are all rumors, but 128 players would be a nice large-scale battle. However, once again, not my bag of tea. I'm more of a competitive, smaller group. Now, if this were to turn into something like 60 on 60, 64 versus 64, big battle, I would probably find far more interest in something like this. But for you Battle Pass people out there and other people who love Fortnite and those type of Battle Royale games, be sure to check this out when it probably hits sometime this fall or possibly next spring, depending upon how delays and other things go. Next up, also from WCCF Tech, The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword Switch has been listed on Amazon UK. Now, this does need to be taken with a grain of salt because we have seen things like this get listed on Amazon in different countries and it turn out not to be an actual product. So this could be a concern. It could have been from a third party. Unfortunately, the link is no longer up and available. The information down here says that as spotted by Eagle Eye Deals watchers at Wario64, the listing has 2011's Wii title listed as Nintendo's hybrid platform. A release date hasn't been mentioned. So you can see the cut here. Unfortunately, there's still no image or anything. So again, take this with a grain of salt. This may not actually be something that's coming out. So back over and on GameSpot, games sold in Australia now disclose if they have in-game purchases. This is good information and something I hope we see come over to the US, where they're a little bit more strict in regards to rating because of these in-game purchases being available. So effectively, Australia Classification Board, ACB, has updated its guidelines to include a special notice to include a special notice on video game boxes that specifically mention if it has in-game purchases. This was brought to light by Reddit user Before Jam, who noticed that ratings for upcoming games like PGA Tour 2K21, Marvel's Avenger, FIFA 21, and Madden NFL 21 all specifically mention in-game purchases as part of their rating. You can see that you can see what the new disclaimer looks like here on Amazon Australia. So if this is something that interests you, make sure that you contact your local government. The best way to do it is look up and call your senators and other members of Congress and just say, hey, I would like better protection, more information on my game boxes. And it's something that they could get involved with. You could also contact your local ratings board as well. Not local, the national ratings board as well, and tell them that this is something you're concerned about and would like to see on boxes. And that has a bigger influence and set up for how games get rated. For instance, 2K for their basketball game actually has in-game purchases that include gambling, but that was released after the game came out, I believe. So it's still sitting there with an E rating, even though it contains material that shouldn't be listed for anyone who isn't at least a teen, if not older. So this is something that's concerning, and the fact that we are guaranteeing that this kind of thing is going to be upfront on the packaging in advance makes a big difference. Other news in Australia, over on TechCrunch, Google warns users in Australia free services are at risk if it's forced to share its ad revenue with big media. So effectively, media companies that receive advertising and information from Google, if they receive advertising information from a media source in Australia, is going to be forced to share revenue with that company. And I'll read a little bit of that here so you can see what's going on. Google has fired a lobbying potshot at a looming change to the law in Australia that will force it to share revenue with local media businesses who content platforms monetize, seeking to mobilize its users against big media. Last month, Australia Competition and Consumer Commission's ACCC published a draft of a mandatory code that seeks to address what it described as acute bargaining power imbalances between local news media and tech giants, Facebook and Google, by engaging in good faith negotiations and by binding off final offer arbitration process. Back in April, the country's government announced it would adopt a mandatory code requiring the two tech giants to share ad revenue with media businesses after an attempt to negotiate a voluntary arrangement with the companies failed to make progress. So, just trying to get this balancing act in here and put together. And again, this is just something that Australia's government had to step in for gaming. On this, and Australia is very active in their gaming world, in gaming in general. It's far more difficult to get a game released there. They, in some cases, make games rated NC-17 and pretty much prevent a game from being able to be sold at all for things that in the U.S. would not have nearly the same effect. Nudity, some violence is considered too extreme. So those things will quickly get a game effectively banned, not truly banned, but effectively banned and kill sales there. So this is why you see things like in Japan for Cyberpunk 2077 coming up, where genitalia will be covered, where in the US its rating will probably be mature, but they'll still be allowed to show genitalia. You'll see breasts. Now, given how far they go, they could get that NC-17 rating here in the U.S., but overall, it's kind of expected to be listed as a mature game. But in Japan, they have to have that covered up. So that is why that option even exists in the game, to either have full nudity or have people be covered up throughout the game, simply because they have to have that compliance and they're building it anyways. So they might as well make the choice available to those who may or may not want to see or have that within their content. Or even have people who are a bit younger within their family going through and playing, but who are old enough for the game, but they don't want that type of thing affecting their children. Continuing into tech news, over on TechCrunch, we have AutoX launches its robo-taxi service in Shanghai, competing with Didi's pilot program. This is an autonomous vehicle startup. AutoX announced the public launch of its self-driving taxi service in Shanghai today, called simply Robotaxi. AutoX offering already faces competition from Didi, China's largest ride-hailing platform, which launches its own Robotaxi program in Shanghai at the end of June. This is interesting because we still have Tesla who's trying to get these self-driving setups, and they're already in test programs in China for other automobiles. Now, how widespread this is, how far these vehicles can actually travel, it's yet to be really seen. These are pretty limited. It comes down here, and Didi's ambition goal is to deploy more than 1 million autonomous vehicles by 2030. So that is a lot of vehicles out there, and this is the kind of thing that'll pretty much kill any type of taxi service out there. If you can ride hail, you don't have to tip. The vehicles are just there, and you're able to get up and go. So this is exciting news long term, but it makes you wonder, if they're so far ahead, what's taking Tesla so long? In other news, Intel, next generation Xe HPG gaming GPUs to utilize TSMC's 6nm process node, launching in 2021's discrete graphics lineup. So this isn't this is interesting news. It's going to be using their 6nm process, which previously everything Intel had been releasing was on 10nm. They had to go over to TSMC in order to even accomplish this, given how many troubles that they're having on their own end. Still working out 7nm for processors, so I imagine most of their engineering and processing tech is going into trying to figure out these issues and focus on that, and allowing someone else to kind of pick up the slack, since they're having supply chain issues on top of all their other problems, and it's probably here to help smooth things out. So at WCCF Tech, they say Intel is launching its first gaming discrete graphics card based on next-gen's Xe HPG GPUs next year. The gaming lineup will feature a range of products, but unlike the Xe LP and Xe HP GPU line, which will be fabricated on Intel's own 10nm SuperFin process node, the Xe HPG GPU are going to be produced at an external foundry, TSMC, being the most likely candidate. I believe that TSMC has already won this. This did come out sometime during the night. There's been a lot of information about TSMC taking up and working with Intel already because of the supply chain issues. So this just goes and helps support and strengthen that type of information. Additional information over on WCCF Tech. NVIDIA GeForce RTX 38 Ampere graphics card maxes out at 2.1 GHz GPU clock, features 19 gigabits GDDR6X memory. This is a little bit different because the rumor that we heard last week is the Founders Editions would be coming out with what was expected to be 20 gigs. So the fact that this one is bumped down to 19, but it is hitting 2.1 gigahertz clock at max, which is a good feature and nice to see overall. I believe last gen we saw 1.9 gigahertz was where they kind of maxed out, so this will definitely increase gaming performance overall. The information that they got came from Rogue Gamer over on Twitter when he went out and posted the PCI IDs for the GA102 GPUs, where it shows a 12 gigabit, which they're listing as RTX 3080 Ti Then they have a 10 gigabit, which they list at RTX 3080. And they also show a 24 gigabit, which is a 3090 is what they're saying. However, the naming scheme hasn't been verified, so this is a little unusual. And the fact that his information has a 10 gigabit 3080 when they're also talking about 19 gigabit 20 gigabit, it's yet to be seen what's really going on here. It's entirely possible that this is just test benchmarks that we're seeing across multiple GPUs to determine what they think the best memory is going to be. It could be that they're trying to figure out if there's enough difference in memory between a 19 gigabit 3080 and a 21 gigabit 3080 to really to go with one or the other, given the expected high competition that's going to be coming out from AMD this year with their RDNA 2. Unfortunately, this is just information we just don't know enough about, and we get these leaks and this information coming out. Again, take all of this with a grain of salt. Rogue Gamer has released a lot of information, and we can't actually say for sure whether or not this is true until we start seeing the cards. Luckily, we are expected to have the RTX 30 series released, or announcement for release, later this month, and the possibility of the cards actually being released on September 9th is the current believed rumor. Continuing on, over on TechCrunch, Elon Musk says embarrassingly late two-factor is coming to Tesla app. Tesla CEO Elon Musk acknowledged Friday that the company was embarrassingly late rolling out a security layer known as two-factor authentication for its mobile app. The quote is, "Sorry, this is embarrassing late. Two-factor authenticate." I just cannot speak this morning. Sorry, everyone. Two-factor authentication via SMS or authenticator app is going through final validation right now, Musk wrote on Friday, in response to a question from a former Twitter follower. Musk said in April that the additional security layer was coming soon. He first mentioned that the company would add two-factor authentication back in May 2019. Tesla owners have stepped up their calls for two-factor authentication as the rest of the tech community has adopted the security feature. So if you want to read more about this, it's over on TechCrunch. This is good news. Glad that they're coming out with it. I don't know how many people were chomping at the bit to have this. It really just depends upon how concerned you are with security on your device. I guess it gives some protection against digital thieves. I don't know how prevalent this actual type of issue is, though. So we'll have to find out later on as this develops. Other news from Elon's division, SpaceX, will attempt to break a rocket reusability record with a launch this week. This is also coming from TechCrunch. SpaceX is preparing for yet another launch of Starlink satellites on Tuesday, its 10th launch of production versions of the satellites to date. In addition to 58 Starlink satellites, the Falcon 9 flying the mission will also carry 3 Planet satellites. And it'll be the 6th time this particular rocket booster has made the trip, making a record-breaking achievement for SpaceX. So that's good to know, to see that these rockets are being reused, that they have the ability to go up and produce less junk. And the fact that we have more and more Starlink satellites getting up there is exciting for the near future, which leads over to leak reveals details of SpaceX Starlink internet service beta program. This is also on TechCrunch. SpaceX Starlink service appears to be getting very close. The company has sent out requests for specific address information to anyone who has registered interest in beta programs this week. Now, a leak initially discovered via Starlink subreddit by a business insider has provided an early look at how the beta program will operate and what is expected by SpaceX of anyone who takes part. Basically, they have they're getting this information. They're finding out who is prime candidates for testing this service. The beta product, they basically are sending the hardware out to you, which includes a satellite dish that you set up on your home. They will not be providing any service to have this set up. They say you cannot request help to set this up. You are expected to do it on your own. You are not allowed to tell people that you have the Starlink according to this, and you can't even basically, if you're not in the household, no one's supposed to know that you're using this. You'll be required to do hourly checks every day on the internet to report back, and you'll receive regular updates that you are required to give back to Starlink in order to validate how your service is doing, determine if there's any problems and what's going on with it. So, being very secretive with its beta testers, but it is exciting that we will see this out there. So, thank you for checking out today's nerdy morning news. Sorry, the morning nerdy news.